Hello YouTube world, my name is Nicholas Montes, and you're watching my YouTube channel, The Teenage Movie Critic. Now, about a week ago, I went to Disney World with my family. Well, actually, the reason I went up there was because I had to drive 4 hours to Daytona because my cousin was having a gender reveal party. Spoiler alert, it's a boy. But because it is summer and, there's not really much to do during the summertime, my family and I decided to go drive an hour ahead to Orlando to the movies resort, so that way the next morning we can drive to Hollywood Studios and Epcot, but mostly Hollywood Studios to check out the new shows that they had opened back in May, which is the new Villains show and the Little Mermaid, a musical adventure. And that's what I'll be talking about today with these two shows opening at Hollywood Studios. And now I have officially seen them, and now I am here to give you my thoughts on all of them. So we're going to start, let's go ahead and start off with the Villains show, since that was actually the first show I saw. And, real quick before I get started, let me just kind of talk in the basis of what this show was. I remember when this show was first announced, which I think they may have announced it like a while back when D23 was going on and they were discussing all their ideas for the parks. Obviously, one of the ideas was to do a Monsters Inc. ride, to do a Lion King ride in Disneyland Paris. And one of the big ideas they had for Disney World, and obviously Monsters Inc. was one of those, was to do a Villains land or a Villains area in one of the parks. I think the Villains area is going to be in Magic Kingdom. And to be honest, I don't know exactly if they did say they were going to do a Villains show in Hollywood Studios during D23, but I know they were mentioning something with Villains. I know it's the Villains land. And then I was in Disney World. Well, actually, I was on my way to Animal Kingdom back in March with my family. I was literally on the bus scrolling through Instagram, and I saw the post that they announced the Little Mermaid, a musical adventure, and Villains and Unfairly Ever After will be opening May 27th, 2025. And while my mind was excited for Little Mermaid, my mind was also excited that we're getting a brand new show. So we're bringing back an old show, and we're bringing in a new show. So I'm like, that has me very excited. But it also got me a little nervous because I didn't know exactly what to expect from this show. Mainly because, essentially the idea is that it was going to be like a show on stage where actors come in, play the villains. And basically the idea of it is the villains are trying to prove to us why they are being mistreated, and the choices that they made throughout the Disney films were fair. And that does seem like a good idea for a show that's entertaining, but it also builds for a great story for a show that kind of puts something unique for us Disney fans. So let's kind of discuss it real quick. Let's just go through this real quick. Sorry, I'm gonna put this to the side. Alright, so essentially the show starts, and I'm gonna try to talk about this show. So I absolutely love this show. I think it was absolutely great in the way the premise paid off. I think the first thing we need to talk about here is just the entire theater. The entire theater, as it's designed to be this theater, as we're watching all these mirrors, and the mirrors are the screens for the show. And you have this like stage, and the background feels real. The backgrounds in the mirrors, in the reflections, feels so real. I'm like, this feels like the most Disney feeling thing ever I've ever seen. I love this so much. And if you don't remember, this was actually where the Cars Lightning McQueen show used to take place, and I guess they replaced it with this show, and that's what it is. And essentially, the show opens up, and it kind of starts off with the opening of the music from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and it starts off with the magic mirror from Snow White, basically, giving us the basic concept that, the magic mirror's always been asked the question, who's the fairest of them all? But these days, villains are now questioning the magic mirror, who was treated the most unfairly of all. And it basically sets up the story for what this show is, but it also sets up a great song that I think is great called Magic Mirror. And the lyrics is catchy, but at the same time, the visuals that are playing on the mirrors is also gorgeous. And I'm like, okay, it kind of has that like little rap beats. I'm like, okay, this is actually really working for me. I'm really liking this show so far. And then basically, we basically get 3 presenters of villains to come out to prove to us why they are treated unfairly. And the villains are Cruella de Vil, Captain Hook, and Maleficent. And I think all 3 of the performances for them were absolutely amazing. Of course, with Cruella de Vil being the first one, I thought the way that she does it, the way they did that, was awesome. Honestly, I thought that was like the best way to hook it. As she's a character that has a great theme song. She is evil, as she wants to kill puppies and make their fur into a fur coat. So it's like, she's probably the most evilest villain, but she's not the most recognizable at the same time. But she's still so evil. But honestly, one thing that really shocked me when it came to her performance was the fact that I'm trying to make this as PG as possible, but like it engaged something inside me. That's all I'm gonna say. Especially when they started playing this like punk rock version of like the Cruella de Vil song, and like she started taking off her jacket, putting all these different costumes on. I'm like, okay, this is really winning me over, and I'm like. And I think that's another way in what this show is doing. It's not just blatantly stating, because in my mind I was thinking the Magic Mirror was going to like do an interview or an interrogation with these villains and being like, why did you want to kill these puppies? Like, no, it wasn't like that. It's also because these villains are so maniacally fun and they have a lot of fun like messing with people. They're trying to, because we are now in charge of trying to prove who's treated unfairly, they're trying to amuse us so that way maybe we can choose later on if they're treated unfairly. And I thought she won me over. She's obviously not treated unfairly, but you can't let her performance mischieve you. And then the other performance. So then, yeah, her performance is done, and then brings in Captain Hook. I think that of all the performances that came from this show, the Captain Hook bit was it kind of didn't excite me as much. Now, I do think there was a great concept that came from it, as, if I'm being honest, I think it would have been a really cool idea if they went with the idea that the reason why, like, if they actually went with the idea that I was thinking of, it would have been really cool if Captain Hook came out and he explained why he hates Peter Pan is because he's actually doing it for a moral cause, that Peter Pan kidnaps children and doesn't want them to grow up, and Captain Hook's actually trying to save these children from doing that. So if anything, Captain Hook's not really trying to do it, but at the same time, because he was a Neverland kid himself, and he grew up, he's kind of grown in some evil ways, in some very twisted ways. So it's like in some ways, he's kind of toward as the bad guy, but he has to do some, like, unspeakable things to get there. And I think that's an interesting concept. I think that would have been an interesting concept to explore in Disney, to actually, like, not be afraid to go into that dark history of path, if they were able to do that and actually prove that theory right. Because, like, if you think about it, that's actually kind of how it is. And maybe it could also be me just being more invested into the Silver Age. Like, honestly, I think the Silver Age has a lot, like, and I mean, this is just a separate rambling thing here, because we'll talk about Maleficent in a minute. I think the Silver Age is a really interesting decade of Disney films. It's not my favorite, but, you know, you get films like Peter Pan and Cinderella, which Cinderella is cool. It's a very classic Disney. You get Peter Pan, it has that classic adventure. And then you of course get Jungle Book, which is amazing. You get Maleficent, you get Sleeping Beauty. You get a lot of good films in there. But at the same time, like, it's very underrated. And then, okay, so let's kind of talk more about it. So, I of course, and also, keep in mind, as the characters are on the stage, the mirrors kind of show all this concept art and of all this animation stuff of, like, character designs. So when it was Cruella, it showed, like, her concept art of her costumes. With Captain Hook, it showed, like, all these pictures from Neverland and, like, all these clips from Neverland. I thought it was really cool. It even has this funny bit where the crocodile's chasing him around. I thought that was really fun. But I think my biggest issue why the Captain Hook bit doesn't really work is because the actor that was playing Captain Hook was not really convincing. And maybe it could just be me because, like, I don't know if we ever actually had a live-action Captain Hook. I mean, I've watched Hook and the live-action Peter Pan from 2003 a lot. So maybe it could just be me, and I haven't really seen a great portrayal of the 1953 Captain Hook character. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it could have been a great use of his character to cast someone else. But also just the facial features. And they did the same thing for later on when Hades and Jafar came on. They didn't have, like they were just screens, but why did they look like that? Were they trying so hard to look like the cartoons? Like, what was the deal? Like, they didn't do that for Maleficent or Cruella. At least I didn't feel that way. So, I don't know. But, so yeah, the Captain Hook bit was a little bit underwhelming. The Maleficent one did kind of win me over, though, because they played, like, this kind of, this epicer version of Once Upon a Dream. But I also love how the whole set, all the mirrors just kind of become this wasteland, like in Sleeping Beauty that you would see. And as she's the most villainous villain of them all, they portray her character so well, and her performance once again wins you over that of why maybe she's the most untreated fairy of all. And then basically, all the villains are trying to get through the mirrors, but Evil Queen comes in and tries to and stops all of it. And now we are deciding. We are now picked to decide who is treated the most unfairly of all: Cruella de Vil, Captain Hook, or Maleficent. Me personally, I think I would choose Captain Hook, because Cruella de Vil wants to kill puppies, and Maleficent try to kill her stepdaughter, or try to kill her, or whatever. She tried to kill an innocent 16-year-old girl. And that's not exactly the best thing in the process. So yeah, I'm gonna choose Captain Hook on this one, because even though he tried to kill a few children with Wendy and stuff, Cruella de Vil and Maleficent did way more worse stuff. So I'm going to go with that. So overall, I think the show was absolutely amazing. I think the music was great. Also, the the closing song as you're leaving the theater, it's pretty awesome. The song it's pretty great. It's Magic Mirror Remix. It's a great song. I think the only thing that I would actually fix about this show is I kind of hate that this show feels, as a concept, it's really good, but at the same time it's like, I don't know if you could do it too long, but at the same time, even with that expansion of length of time, I don't know if you could only use 3 villains. And I mean, I like that they do something different every time where a villain wins different times. But to me, it's a little weird because you're not having the advantage of doing different villains every time. Maybe it's because, you don't have as many actors and they had certain villains to be casted with this show. I don't know. But maybe as the show keeps, goes along throughout the year, maybe we'll actually get more villains to show up, and maybe we'll actually get different performances, and we'll get to see all different kinds of stuff. One thing that kind of sparked my interest is for the last year or so, I had a sort of falling out of the holiday of Halloween, where last year I didn't go trick or treating with anyone. I stayed home and had fun with family, and I was kind of disappointed, but not really, because not really anyone else was doing anything for Halloween, so I wasn't really that disappointed. And I was okay with doing the stuff I did at home, having fun with family, eating Halloween-themed snacks, and watching music videos. So it's like, it was fun. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning Halloween is because I got a lot of Halloween vibes from this show, as it's villainous and it's dark and spooky and scary, especially with the Maleficent bit. I think when it comes to around Halloween time, this is probably going to be a big seller. Now, I don't know about this year because the show came out in May. If they have time to plan something big for the Halloween season during that time, and they get to maybe do something a little bit special with it, maybe. But maybe next year they'll probably do something with it. And if this show is happening to connect with the Villains Land they're doing in one of these parks, and this is like a tease for what the Villains Land is going to be teasing, I'm not going to be surprised, but honestly, it has me excited for all the villain stuff we'll be getting. And I'm interested to see what the land is going to be like. I'm interested because I'm like, we're entering the world of these villains, but we're also we could possibly be entering like different types of things to do with them, whether it's a ride or a show. There's a lot of things you could actually do with a lot of the villainous characters that I think could be a lot of fun. So this show kind of presented in something that could be great for the future if they were to do it. Alright, so yeah, villains shows out of the way. Now let's talk about the big main event of this, and really the big reason why I came to Disney World in the first place. Let me go, we're going to talk about the Little Mermaid musical adventure. Alright, so keep in mind, for a second here, because if you don't know me and my opinions on Hollywood studios, as I've talked about a few times in my Disney World videos, that I've said that Hollywood studios, one of the best factors of it is, especially after coming back and realizing it, and, for the many times I've been to Hollywood studios, I think Hollywood Studios, its best factor is its shows. There are so many great shows at Hollywood Studios that I absolutely love. I mean, you got the Indiana Jones show. That is a great show. That it's a stunt show, but it also kind of teases you of what goes on behind filmmaking and how to make a movie. You get the Frozen show, which is a very fun way of telling the Frozen story. Let's see, Muppet Vision 3D. That's taken down now, but I still absolutely love that show, and it honestly was a great show going back to watching it before it closed down. Now we have Villains, and then one of the best shows that I think really impacted my liking for Disney World shows was the Voyage of the Little Mermaid show, which was called that for a long time let me see when it opened. I've kind of forgot. It opened in January 7th of 1992. And it was one of my favorite attractions ever since I went to Disney. And, being able to see this show explored through Disney World and, just seeing the Little Mermaid come to life in this little show at Disney, I'm like, this is absolutely amazing. And then, but as much as I love the show, I do have to admit there are some things that I do think they should fix, such as maybe like some of the special effects, some of the puppetry, maybe some of the animatronics, and to be honest, I was kind of fine with the queue line because it actually made it feel magical. But like there were a few things I would have fixed, and then when COVID happened, they actually closed it for good on March 15th, 2020. And it's been closed for like, what? It's been closed for like almost 5 years, and then it finally opened. And when it was getting closer to the date when it was coming out, when it was coming back, I didn't really expect too much. I kind of just, because when you're updating a ride or a show, I kind of just expect that you just fix little things. I mean, they did this with Pirates of the Caribbean, and they added this girl in here, and, didn't really change the entirety of the ride. Considering that if you were able to fix something like that, you'd have to, you'd have to be, like, a genius. You'd have to be, like, a crazy man to do that. Something like Walt Disney would have done. But, they actually were teasing that, we added a few scenes, such as the sisters scene, where we added Kiss the Girl, and we're also doing something interesting with, screens and technology and puppetry, and I'm like, okay, what are they trying to do with this show here? I'm interested now. You have gotten me hooked now. I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all cook. And then I finally saw the show, and boy, oh boy, was I thrilled of what this show did. So first off, let me just start off by saying, it was a pleasure to have this show back. Of course, this was one of my favorite shows back at Disney World when I was first going. If you don't know, when I first started going to Disney World, it was between 2016 and really 2019. Those were my first 4 prime years of going to Disney. Then once 2020 and COVID hit, everything just kind of changed and became kind of crappy. But with the changes that they made with this show, I thought it absolutely worked. First off, let's kind of go through the premise here. So it kind of opens with the little seat horse, as it appears on the screen, and it's calling out like it does at the beginning of the movie, and it shows us a 3D model of Sebastian and King Triton. And just like the original movie, it opens like that. And it's I have some more positive thoughts to say on the screens. I thought it was cool. Like, first of all, one positive thing I want to say about this scene before we go into the sisters and stuff. Love that Jim Cummings plays King Triton. I remember when the show premiered, I accidentally saw a spoiler, and I saw that scene at the opening, and I'm like, oh shit, that's Jim Cummings is playing him. And I remember Jim Cummings posting a video about that on his story, and I'm like, oh shit, Jim Cummings plays him? That's awesome. Jim Cummings, you can bring any actor into this now. And like they really did it with this show. They're not just, making recordings of these past actors from the movie. They're actually bringing in new actors to do this. They actually are cooking with this. But besides the Jim Cummings casting, I do think the screen 3D models are a little weird. Now, that doesn't ruin the entire, thing. I think in other places it works really well. In this aspect, it's like, why? Like, we have a puppet version of Sebastian, but we don't have a 3D, like, animatronic of King Triton. Why is that? And obviously I can understand the sisters bit, like, how do you do that in a live setting with real actors and stuff? It's a lot better to do with an animated model. I don't know. But I feel like they found a really interesting way to make it kind of live action, but 3D. I thought it was interesting. But why don't they do King Triton in an animatronic way? Probably because it's kind of impossible to do it, especially with like the lightning and how exactly do you do that? It's a little bit interesting when you think about it, but besides that, and then you get Ariel and her segment with Part of Your World. Once again, this is a great song. But what also does it is, it's once again doing the 3D screen effects, which as Part of Your World is being played, it kind of and they did this a little bit in the other show where it kind of shows us the clips from the movie, but in this one it actually shows us what Ariel's thinking and what dancing and frolicking with legs would be like. So it shows us like this 3D image. And I'm like, that is actually genius. That's awesome to show something like that on the screen. And I thought that was absolutely incredible. And I also like the way they included Eric a lot more in this show. That he's more seen as a stranger in the past show. But in this one, he's actually included a little bit more. As he has a segment of, trying to find the right girl to marry. He's in Kiss the Girl. He's portrayed throughout the finale of it. So he's in it a little bit more, and then I really like that. And I liked the way they played certain parts of Part of Your World, especially in the way they do it in the finale, too, of where they play parts differently, and they make it sound differently. And I really enjoyed that aspect. And then we get into probably one of my favorite parts of the show, which is Under the Sea bit, which, in my opinion, it basically, I think this and the showing the finale was probably the best usage of the technology. And also in Poor Unfortunate Souls, where this is probably the funnest bit of the show, where we're showing, like, all this wackiness, it is the best usage of 3D, of the puppets, the screens, and the live action actors all in one, and yet it's all able to be fun and exciting. It's able to mix up the soundtrack just a little bit to make it fun, and it is just so much fun to be in this Under the Sea bit, and it's loud and it's explosive and it's just so much fun. So I think that was probably my favorite scene of the show. We then have the Poor Unfortunate Souls bit. We bring back the animatronic, and they don't use the original voice from the Little Mermaid that played Ursula. I forgot her name. I know they couldn't bring back her voice because the original actress that played Ursula passed away like a long time ago, so they had to bring in a new actress. I thought she was fine. I would have been fine if they brought back the original voice actress, but I think they wanted to keep it more authentic. But I was totally fine with what they did. And once again, this keeps like the 3D image showing the heart and, 3 days. Got it? 3 days. 3 days. That was a really cool image. And just once Ursula gets Ariel's voice, it's so evil and it's so big and massive. I'm like, this is awesome. And I also love when it transitions to Kiss the Girl scene. It doesn't have to show Ariel and Eric meeting. You can just imagine it and you can just hear them talking about it. And I love that. And then we get the Kiss the Girl sequence, which I thought it was good, but I don't think it was that amazing. Mainly because in what other way can you possibly do it in? Because it's like you have to show the background of the night sky. You have to show a little bit of the 3D effects because you can't exactly have puppet fish squirting water because that's kind of weird and that's not possible. So you have to find a way to make it logical, and for what they were able to do, I thought it was good. I can't really talk too much about it just because it's not the most impressive thing, but I thought for what they did with it, it was really cool. It was cool. And then we kind of zoom through the final battle, and I thought that was probably the coolest scene of the entire show, where, it's kind of like a big whirlwind of wind. You have these actors kind of like going in slow motion, and then they're like running over here like, ooh, and they have the big Ursula thing, like, how did he get on the pirate ship? I'm like, that is incredible. And I guess we'll just talk about the great usage of puppets, technology, and live actors, especially when it came to this technology. The fact is, you can have a live actor, a puppet, and this technology being on the screen at the same time as all of it, and it feels so seamlessly that you probably can see the screen there, but you don't. But it makes it invisible enough that it doesn't ruin the illusion that you are watching this show, that it doesn't feel like nothing's there. Like, you don't see a projector or this being projected like a projector in the background. It's presented so well, and I just thought the technology that they used for this show, the puppetry, everything was great. And even the fact is, the way that they did the technology with the 3D fish, they actually did puppet dances to do all of that, to create the choreography for all the dances. And I'm like, that's so much fun. That's such a creative way to do a show like this. So for me, I thought The Little Mermaid, A Musical Adventure was absolutely a banger. A great show at Walt Disney World and at Hollywood Studios. And once again, one of my favorite shows at Hollywood Studios is back, and it's better than ever, and I'm very much happy with it. And that is my thoughts on Villain's Show and The Little Mermaid, A Musical Adventure. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.